Surya and Sally, welcome.
Yay.
And viewers at home. All Toastmaster clubs have the same mission. The mission of a Toastmasters club is to create a mutually supportive, positive learning environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to learn oral communication, thank you, Jean, and leadership skills. Welcome, Karen. That, in turn, builds, and once again we have Slobodan coming in a few minutes late.
Again.
So Toastmasters builds self-confidence and self-improvement. Let's hear it for self-confidence. In our contest on September 17th, we will have humorous speakers and evaluation speakers. We will be coming early that night. The contest has to prepare the room. At 6:45, we will come and set up the room. At 7, we'll have the judges' briefing and the role players' briefings and the rehearsal for the contestants so that they know about the stage that's measured off. Are there any questions about the contest tonight? Just quickly. Tom?
Everybody needs to be here at 7. Everybody.
Thank you, Tom. That's a very good point. We have a lot to do, and we want to be busy little bees so we can have a lot of honey coming out of our hive. I would like to introduce our honorable Toastmaster of the evening, Scott Terry.
Right, Scott.
Thank you.
I'm here to produce some honey tonight. Why not? Toastmastering tonight is my job, and we are going to go through some of the roles. Arthur will be our fabulous timer. Arthur, take it away.
My job as timer is to track how well we adhere to our agenda timings this evening. For that purpose, we'll be using the stopwatch and timing the speeches that are given. Table topics are 1 to 2 minute speeches. The green light is turned on at 1 minute, yellow light at 1 minute 30 seconds, red light turned on at 2 minutes, remains on until the end of the speech. Prepared speeches are usually 5 to 7 minutes, and we do have one 5 to 7 minute speech. We have another speech at 6 to 8 minutes, and another at 7 to 9 minutes this evening. In a 5 to 7 minute speech, the green light is turned on at 5 minutes, yellow at 6, red at 7, and remains on until the end of the speech. The longer speeches will turn on for Tom at 7, 8, and 9. For Slobodan, it'll be 5, 6, and 7. For Diane, it'll be 6, 7, and 8. Evaluations are 3 minute speeches. The green light is turned on at 2 minutes, yellow at 2 minutes 30. Red light is turned on at 3 minutes and remains on until the end of the evaluation. All speakers and evaluators have a 30-second grace period after the red light is turned on to complete. Speaking longer than that would disqualify you in the voting that we do for awards at the end. Table topic speakers need to speak for at least 1 minute, that is, until the green light goes on, to qualify for votes. I'll give a report at the end of the meeting.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Tonight's theme, by the way, is back to school. Thank you. Jean, kindle us as to. See, I'm sort of giving her ahead of time. Kindle us to the aha counter and what you do.
At the ah counter, I will be counting filler words that can creep into our communication words like like, you know, so, but, and, There's a tongue click. On our form here, by the way, the next one is pause. Actually, pause is a good thing. I'd rather you pause than put in a filler word. So I will not be counting pauses in any way, shape, or form, other than to go like this. Well, now, and false starts or repeats, where you start a sentence and then you stop and you start again.
Ah!
And I will give a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Yo!
It's so great to have you here today, by the way.
Ah!
Vera, introduce us to the grammarian and how they kindle all of us with our light inside us and science.
Thank you. As grammarian, introducing you to the word of the day, I feel it's very fitting to children, whatever age we are, and like to see more kindling of things that inspire us, as we do in Toastmasters. And my job is to take note of how you use the word, how often you use the word, creative expressions throughout our topics tonight. And we'll report back at the end of the meeting. I'll give a brief report on what I've heard and listen for the word of the day. And make note of exceptionally good uses of the language. Now, have given you a fairly easy word, so I doubt I'll have much time to dwell on any negative uses. So, thank you.
All right. A kindly good word for tonight. All right, I'm going to stop using it now. We are now going to get into table topics, but we will have Stephanie come on at the end to tell us, to give us a general evaluation, and the all-important Dan will give us the ballots, because that is important.
And I have something to say about leader countering.
Oh, yes.
My role as a leader counter is to help ensure that all of you who have a role tonight and need credit in your manual have an evaluator for your role so that you can get that credit. Could I see hands of anybody who has their manual, is doing a role, and needs an evaluator? Who can evaluate Scott? And who else?
Gene?
I already used up the odd counter one, so I don't have any.
The last point is, please bring your leadership manual every time for this purpose, but also sometimes you can come and get a role by surprise. The last thing is, VP of Ed, let me know if there are roles that you would like in future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to get into table topics before the prepared speeches. Marilyn will come up, and Satish will be evaluating at the end. Hi, Marilyn.
Thank you. We have a great theme tonight and a great quote. The difference between school and life. In school, you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. So let's get started. Who wants to be first? Cindy.
Yo!
Okay. Schools are in a lot of trouble now. They definitely need a rekindling, right? Now, I don't know if you've seen today's, I just got my Toastmasters magazine today. Have you seen this? How to improve your mental acuity, exercising the mind. So do you think we should bring Toastmasters into the schools?
Have I got a deal for you? Instead instead of having that boring study hall where you're sitting there in high school and you rip off a little paper and you find a straw on the floor and you go, do you remember you shooting spitballs at each other maybe in school? No, of course not. You never did anything like that. Well, in place of this study hall, because no one seems to be studying anyway, they're all texting and tweeting and twittering and doing all kinds of stuff. Why don't we have a Toastmasters meeting instead? I think every school, all the students, some teachers, I'm sure, could use a Toastmaster class to brush off their skills and learn new ones. May even get a few leaders out of this. Someone who kind of has a political interest maybe, but their speaking skills aren't really up to speed. Perhaps they can even learn to speak better, how they could present themselves better. Wouldn't it be great if we could all just be so eloquent, like 407 years ago? Why not? Yes, Toastmasters does belong in all schools. And I hope we can get one full-time in Fairfield. Great.
Thank you, Cindy. Who's next? Darlene. Good to see you. Okay, and the Toastmasters magazine that just came out, there's an article on brain lifting, a crash course, and it says, unfortunately, the creativity of school children has been declining for more than 20 years now, according to students' performances on tests, etc. How much of this is due to an emphasis on standardization and rote learning in schools, and what can we do about it? In other words, how can we kindle creativity?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home, I'm going to totally digress because I have been in the School of Life. As you all know, I started a new job recently as a Vitamix demonstrator, so I have been traveling all over. I started my training in Missouri, in Manchester, Missouri, and I was there for a total of 17 days. I had 6 days of training, 2 days off, and then I finished the show, which was 8 days, and I came home and I was a zombie for 4 days. I was totally wiped out and exhausted. Since then, I've been also in Iowa City. Most of my shows are in Costco's. And I just recently came back from Omaha, Nebraska, and I was there for 10 days. And on Thursday, I head to Des Moines. I'll be in Des Moines, Iowa for about 9 more days. So yes, I did get my hair cut.
Yes.
And it's a real practical reason because I have to wear a hairnet because I'm working with food all the time. And on top of the hairnet, I need to wear a Vitamix cap. So it's just like the hairnet was like all over the place. So I just told my hairdresser I need something that's short on the sides and in the back, so I don't have all this hair hanging down here. So of course, when I'm doing a show, it's all covered up with the cap. But that I wasn't trying to be fashionable or whatever. But it is kind of cute if I have to say so myself. It just so fits my personality. I've had it like this before, so it's not new to me. So quick story. One of the samples that I do is I make ice cream, and if I do it right, it's really solid, and it creates 4 mounds in the container, and I can turn it upside down, and just like kind of wows everybody that look, this is when you know it's done because you can turn it upside down. So I did that, and all these little kids, you know, were really enthralled by the presentation, and so this little boy, he comes and gets a sample.
And I just see over to the side, his mom kind of like has this look of horror. And here he took the sample and he said to his mom, "Mom, you know when it's done, when you go like this." Well, of course, it had melted and it just went poof, right on the floor. And his mom was like horrified that her child had just done this. I said, "Mom, he was watching me. He didn't realize I have a cap on it. And after a while, it starts smelling." So that's a funny story. Thank you.
Who's next? Karen.
Karen.
Let's see. Okay, let's get another quote from our famous Toastmasters magazine. Okay, stress impairs the development of neurons and neural connections. It limits agile thinking ability and leaves us with tunnel vision. So taking tests in school is very stressful. Do you think it really adds to our education? Thank you.
Good evening. Greetings, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, welcome. The question is, are tests useful in a school or educational environment? I would say my answer is yes and no. Personally, I always loved the competitive edge about school. I was a competitive runner, I was a competitive flutist, and I really liked to get straight A's. So I had that motivation, you know, to always be the best or to get the best grades. That worked really well for me. And that motivated me to apply for a very prestigious boarding school in high school. And I had to submit an audition video to get into this particular boarding school. So I always liked that drive. That really worked well for me. On the other hand, I do also agree, and I also consider testing to be a negative impact. By the time I finished high school, after all the pushing, striving, studying, and attempting to get into a really good school, I was completely wiped out. And I would have to say, it might not have been all the testing and all the studying. It might have been that I didn't have a way to deal with the stress. Because I would say that it's not really bad. We're not trying to avoid stress in our lives, but we are interested in finding a way to release that stress every day. And that's how I ended up meditating, because by the time I got to university, I could not handle the load of stress anymore. As a high schooler, I think I had plenty of reserve, you know, I had energy, but it just caught up to me at a certain point. Now, I can say I can handle the daily stresses, I can keep up with all the creative projects, and I'm thriving. And I wish I had this knowledge of the meditation techniques, the counseling, the therapies that I have today. I wish I could have had that as a younger child, and maybe I would not have had to go through all the stresses in my adulthood.
Yo.
So, what?
Just about out.
You're done.
You're done.
Okay, so let's vote. Did everybody qualify?
Cindy qualified, Karen qualified, Darlene was overtime. 5 to 7.
1 out of 2.
Okay, are we all finished? So now let's welcome our evaluator, who is Satish.
Satish, yes.
Who will kindle us with his evaluation skills.
I'll try my best. Good evening, Table Topics Master, Toastmaster, members, viewers at home, and honorable guests. Did you all enjoy the Table Topics session?
Yes. Yo.
Yes.
Yes, I did too. We have two important players in this. One, our Table Topic Master, who gave us real clear questions, direct questions, and she used our magazine, Toastmaster magazine, which was even more attractive today. She in fact kindled our speakers, who did a great job today. So let me jump into the evaluation part, Cindy, who came up first, your vocal variety, your first question and your exclamation, the announcement was sort of very catchy and right away, instantly got all our attention. So that was great. You had a lot of vocal variety in your speech throughout. You answered directly to the question. And in fact, I liked your conclusion when you said TM, Toastmaster belongs to all schools. So that was great. And an improvement suggestion would be, do not forget to greet the audience. Yeah. Our next speaker was Darling. She right away sort of confessed, I'm going to digress. And she did. She tried. I mean, I like the way, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. She had a fun story in it. I liked it. In fact, you did bring in some creativity in telling that funny story and your own story about your hairdo, what a practical reason for that. All that was really nice. The way you conveyed the whole thing was nice. But you have to, in my opinion, try to answer to the question, which is going to please our table topics master. No, sorry. He doesn't. And finally, our final speaker in the table topics session was Karen. Yeah, she talked about tests stressful, so I liked the way you right away said yes and no, and so we had that longing what you're going to say for yes and no. So that was good. You had a lot of movements, but the one thing I thought you could have done to improve would have been to involve the audience. Maybe asked who grouped the audience who said yes and said no, so that would have sort of connected to the audience and been better. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish. That was awesome. We are now into the prepared speeches of the night. It's a pretty exciting time. That's right. Bert's going to come up and get us set up for Tom, who's going to be giving us a storytelling tonight. And we're going to gather around.
Come on, get up close.
Come on down.
Toastmasters for over 17 years. He's a double distinguished Toastmaster and currently working on his third. He has served his clubs in every officer role, including being the Area 92 and Division E Governor. Tom has started, mentored, and kindled 2 new Toastmasters Club, including one operating in the Fort Madison maximum security prison. Tonight, Tom is doing Project Uno, the folktale from the Advanced Communicator Manual, Storytelling. His title is Big Bad Al and the Boys. Please help me in welcoming Tom Trainer.
Is everybody comfortable? Envision a campfire. We're sitting around. This story is set in the deepest, darkest, hottest, steamiest part of the bayou down in Louisiana, full of all kinds of critters. And it was a day like last week, 100 degrees, 100% humidity, and Big Bad Al kind of woke up from a short nap. Big Bad Al is a short name for Big Bad Alligator. Now he's 16 feet long, he weighs over 800 pounds, and he is a non-stop eating machine. 24/7, 365, eat, take a nap for maybe 5 minutes, and eat some more. And he's me. On this particular day, he woke up, and all of a sudden he got a hankering for bacon. He hadn't had bacon in a long, long time. And he knew exactly where to get bacon. If you went down the main bayou, and you went up this little cut, and then over, he went to this place where the Boer boys lived. Now, these were real Louisiana, full-size, big boy Boers. And he swam right up to the front of Junior Boer. Now, these aren't pink little piggies. These are big, 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 ugly Boers. And he hollered at the top of his lungs, "Junior, why don't you come on out and we can do lunch?" But Junior wasn't stupid. He didn't want to do lunch. Big Bad Al wanted him to be lunch. No. Junior Boer lived in a kind of a makeshift kind of a place that you might have called it a home. He called it home, but you and I would have just seen it as a bunch of weeds and grasses from the bayou. And Big Bad Al, also known as shortly to everybody else as just Big Bad, said, "Junior, if you don't come out, I'm going to have to just smash your house to bits, and then we'll do lunch." Junior was on to this. So while Big Bad is out front raising Cain, Junior snuck out the back and he went down the bayou to his brother's house. In the meantime, Big Bad Al takes that tail of his, which is almost 10 feet long, and he starts thrashing and smashing, and pretty soon that little old bunch of straw and twigs and weeds, nothing but nothing. And Big Al was mad because Junior wasn't home. So you know where the other two brothers live, so he proceeds to sashay on down the bayou, goes next door. Well, this is where Heavy lives. Now, Junior weighs 600 pounds. Heavy weighs about 800 pounds. And Big Bad Al says, "Junior and Heavy, I know you're in there and I want you to come out and do lunch." But he didn't really want to do lunch. He wanted the boys to be lunch. Now, these boys were smarter. They didn't wait for the second call. First call from Big Bad Al, they went out the back door and down behind the bushes and to the youngest brother. Big Bad Al keeps hollering and slamming, and pretty soon he's got that tail of his a-thrashing away, and the house that Heavy had built out of driftwood around the bayou was nothing but splinters and toothpicks, and there was nothing left of it. And boy, now Big Bad Al is really mad because Junior's missing and Heavy's missing. But he knows. They're down the bayou at Tiny's house. Now, Tiny is the biggest of all of them. And Tiny's kind of a joke because he weighed 1,200 pounds. Now, Tiny had a beautiful house. See, Tiny had been recruited to play football at LSU. That's Louisiana State University. And he had done so well, and they kept him in school so long, he even got an MBA. I don't know what that means, but he seemed to think it was good, and he knew so many good old boys from his days at football that he got recruited to go to Texas, and he went to work for Enron Corporation. Now, he didn't know what he was supposed to do, and nobody else seemed to know either, but all of a sudden they just kept putting $1 million bills in his pocket. He couldn't figure out, because he knew all these people, and he was calling them on the phone. And while he was in Texas, he had an opportunity, company paid, to learn this meditation thing, and he learned all about this esoteric architecture. So when he got out of Enron long before the bad days came, and he moved back in the bayou, and he had himself built this beautiful, beautiful home. All steel frame, and it had white marble on the inside, and it had white marble on the outside, and it had a great big steel fence all the way around, and the only gate faced east, and this fence was made out of steel posts, and there was nobody going to go through there unless you had a bad truck. He sachets on down to Tiny's house, and he goes, "Junior and Heavy and Tiny, I know you're in there, and I want you all to come out and do lunch." Real quiet. The steel shutters had been closed. Nothing. Big Bad Al shouts again, "If you all don't come out, I am just going to smash your old house into bits, and there will just be nothing left of it." Not a peep. Big Bad Al got really, really mad. He takes that great big 10-foot long tail, and he starts whacking that building, and about the third time he hits it, tail broke right off. And pretty soon, what do you do with a 16-foot long alligator who just lost 10 foot of his tail? And he realized he wasn't so big and bad and mean. In fact, he's kind of in trouble. So he's kind of slithered out, went down to the bayou, and found something smaller to chew on for lunch. So Tiny and Heavy and Junior came out of this beautiful house, white marble on the inside and white marble on the outside, and they took that whole tail and they skinned it up, and they built a big bonfire, and they put some really hot Cajun season, and they had the best barbecue they'd ever had. You know, they kindled that fire with a little bit of driftwood, and they had a heck of a great party, and they kept drinking a few cold ones, and they were making toast to Big Bad Al, and Big Bad Al never, ever came back to bother the Boer boys. And that's the truth. So help me. Amen.
That was awesome. We are now going to get into the next one, and then Bert will give us evaluation after, right?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, 2 minutes. Yes. Going to go into the next section. Jeff's going to come up and introduce Diane, who's going to be doing her speech.
Yo!
And I will be... Yeah, sorry. I'm already after my next segment here.
Fellow Toastmasters, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce and evaluate our next speaker, Diane Denbaum. Diane will be doing project number 2 from the Humorously Speaking Advanced Communication Series. This was originally published in 1998, revised in 2007. And project number 2 is Leave Them with a Smile. So the objectives of our speech tonight will be to prepare a serious speech that opens and closes with humorous stories, prepare a closing story that re-emphasizes the speech's main point and delivers the stories smoothly and effectively. It's 6 to 8 minutes, is that where we're at? So please join me in warmly welcoming Diane Denbaum.
Good evening, Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home. In 1975, I was a high school graduate, and I landed down under. I was so excited to be down under, Australia. I should explain, it is slang in case you don't know. I was very excited to be in Australia for many reasons. But one of the main reasons I was excited was I heard they played football, but it was different than American football. And I was really into football. All my friends played in high school and college. So I was really excited. And when I finally got to tell an Australian person who happened to be a man how excited I was, I said, I can't wait to root for the Australian teams. And he looked at me and he said, do you know what you're talking about? I said, yeah, I'm going to root for the teams. He said, okay, Yankee. I'm going to set you straight right from the start. The word root means sexual intercourse. I was mortified. I had never been to a country before where I misused the language. This was my first experience leaving America. He said to me, he just turned and he used this wonderful expression where he just said, she'll be right. She'll be right. And over there, that means, it's all good, don't worry about it. So the serious message here in this speech is, I really learned in that wonderful country, she'll be right, don't sweat the small stuff. I'm really also excited. From that time period, I was in Australia 13 years. But I was a newbie when I thought I was going to be rooting for athletic teams. I had slides from that period from 1975 to 1977. And they've been sitting with me, traveling, all the rest of it. I finally turned them into a DVD. And I took the best of. I took 35 of them because it was actually a little expensive to do. And some of them I didn't want anymore. So my story about my time, 2 years out of the 13, are in this on the CD, not yet made into a PowerPoint. I have my assistant, Scott, who's going to help me. So I'm going to show you my first slide, tell you a story, show you how I learned not to sweat the small stuff down there. So here we go. One of the things I did when I got to Australia, I was a teacher. Now they're going to jump around. That's the other warning ahead of time. I got these great vacations. And so on one vacation I said, I want to go see what it's like to live on an island by myself. So I went to this place called Airlie Beach and I was jetted out on a boat to this island. So don't I look peaceful and serene? And again, learning not to sweat the small stuff. I tried not to worry about the wild boars that I found were running around the island. So I was sharing that with them. The next one.
You took the picture.
The boars.
I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, there's always one in the crowd.
Sorry.
Because at time, I'm kidding, darling. But really, I know. Because at time, there was one other man who was on the other end of the island. And at one point he walked down and was shocked to see me, as I was shocked to see him, so he took a quick picture. And that's how that happened. So anyway, now we're really jumping. I'm in New Zealand, backpacking on this fabulous 6-week trip. I really have nothing to say on that one, other than I wanted to show you because it's on the slide. This was Fiji. This man here told us all about this sugar cane. Did we want to suck this sugar cane? You know, he pulled it out of the plants and all the rest of it. So talk about don't sweat the small stuff. It was not sugar cane. And we were afraid of getting in trouble. But anyway, that's the little story there where you just don't know what's going to happen when you're traveling. We were fine.
Which one of those is you?
Here.
Oh.
I was like 23.
So what were you sucking?
I don't know, some kind of plant. I don't remember the name of it, but we started not to feel good, and actually, some were feeling really good. We just knew there was something that
kind of plant, huh?
So we just sort of stopped. Now that's me before I went up to the island. So that was me getting onto ANZ Airlines, ready to go to the island. So that's just a short, sweet one. There's no real story there other than it was part of my life for 2 years. Now this is the Great Barrier Reef, and I'm snorkeling. I was with some other people, so that's who took the photo. And the don't sweat the small stuff, everyone is snorkeling and, you know, enjoying, and I'm hearing the word shark, and look at this shark, and look at that shark. And I'm petrified. So I really spent most of my time up here on the reef. I got out of here quick. I heard that word shark and I was out. That's that same picture where we knew we were not just sucking on sugar cane. The camping over there, talk about don't sweat the small stuff and just enjoying this free feeling. You just, in Australia, you just drive along and you just say, hey, let's camp there. And you just start camping. It's fabulous. This was north of Sydney. I was with 2 other friends. Now I'm back in Fiji, and this was a grave. I don't think they sweat a lot because they line beer bottles around to bury the soul. Those are all beer cans, beer bottles around the graves. So that was, it was sort of an eye-opener to me. This is where I actually, these sweet little 36 first graders are the reason I began my spiritual path. I am in a new country, 2 hours west of Sydney. They do not have lined paper, there's no construction paper, and I was trained in Albany, New York. Every night I went home and I just thought, how am I going to do this with all these students? Long story short, it was the reason I learned how to do to learn TM, the choice that I have for meditation. So, you know, it was really just survival. So I'd like to close, there's more. I'd like to close by another story. When you walk into the pubs at Australia, even if it's loud, do not say, hey, I better shout, because the whole bar will think you're treating them to a beer. Because the word shout means to treat. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
We're going to now take 2 minutes and evaluate. Great. Will's now going to come up and tell us about another Slobodan talk.
Yo!
Hey, Will. Enjoy it.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Slobodan Dimoslinsky. Slobodan is from Macedonia, and he is a programmer by trade. However, tonight he's going to talk about something totally different. Please help me warmly welcome Slobodan Dimoslinsky.
Good evening, fellow members, viewers at home, and honored guests. I like to travel. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Macedonia next week, which is in Europe, for some of you. Now, I think everybody likes to travel, right? It kindles your imagination. We just saw a great show by Diane. We don't have any sugar canes to suck on, but people suck on something else over there. But is anyone here who doesn't like to travel? Rhonda, what are your objections to travel?
I don't like sitting for long periods of time.
For time consuming?
It's uncomfortable.
And it's probably quite costly too.
Yes.
Right. So, I relate to that. Even though I like to travel, the time, the money, the pollution that the travel creates is something that I'm aware of. And that's why I want to tell you something about a Hyperloop. Have you heard about a Hyperloop?
No.
Perfect. Some people have heard about Hyperloop. But on the 12th of August this year, Elon Musk came up with an idea. He actually shared an idea. It's an open source idea right now. Anybody can build up on that. About a revolutionary 5th generation of transportation. which is extremely fast. He's talking about speeds of more than 700 miles per hour, more than airplane speed. Extremely low cost to operate. Basically, it generates its own energy. It has so much energy it can actually give the free energy to the environment, if anybody wants to use some of it. It's very inexpensive to build. It's about 1/10 of the proposed cost for an upgrade of the railroad in California. On the other side, it's very safe. It's almost impossible to fail. And can work in any conditions. The snow, the wind, even earthquakes are not a problem for this thing. For example, when was the last time you went to Chicago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. How long did it take to get to Chicago from Fairfield?
About 4 hours.
4 hours. And how much do you think it cost in gas?
Gas. Well, I have a gas zipper, so $7.
$7. Okay, for yourself. Now, what would you say if I tell you, or if somebody offers you to go to Chicago and get there in about 14 minutes? Ah! Yes, 14 minutes. And it will cost you about $11. You like it? Are you guys interested in the idea?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does it really work? This is not exactly the same explanation, but if you go to a drive-in teller in a bank, you have this container, you put some stuff in there, it goes in, zoom, it gets sucked, it shows on the other side the teller's desk, right? Teller's desk. Well, it's not the same thing, but the vacuum creates low pressure and low resistance. Now this idea, besides the low pressure, so it's going to be in a vacuum tubes, and I have a picture of them here, a vacuum tubes. Not really a vacuum because vacuum is very expensive, so a low pressure tubes. It's going to use the extra air to create a cushion under the car that will go inside those steel pipes that will be avoiding resistance now. Or actually, there was a resistance, there was no air, that's the resistance part. This will actually avoid friction. And it was propelled by linear induction motors. If you need an explanation about this, ask me later. But this is something very inexpensive, very fast. So I said 700, it's going to be a high capacity stuff. It can have more than 1,000 people per hour that can run the system. Goes in two directions, goes both ways. I don't want to forget some of the really remarkable things about it, but the power supply will go with the solar panels that are on top of it. The proposed solution will go from LA to San Francisco in half an hour for $20 per person. And the power coming from the solar panels will actually be extra power that can go in the community. Now that's how they look like. The proposed system with people sitting here and just being zoomed left and right. Now what is behind this idea? Is it like a novel idea, just like imagination, or not? Well, first of all, the author, Elon Musk, is an extremely well-known and extremely successful entrepreneur. Somebody who has a kindled mind and turns good ideas into reality. He is a co-founder of PayPal, made billions of dollars there. He's a CEO of Tesla. A car that from zero to being the best car ever driven on any road by the Consumer Report, beyond BMWs and Mercedes and Cadillacs and all the other guys in just a couple of years, going in a very new field. He's also a CEO of SpaceX, a system that actually creates rockets that will go to outside of our gravitational force and come back. So reusable rockets, actually the booster of the rocket. And he also has a solar city, solar power energy projects. So a very reliable one. The idea is more than 100 years old. In 1909, a Russian professor made a similar proposal with using magnet levitation and vacuum tubes. It was rekindled in 1970s in USA by study at Worcester Institute of Polytechnics and some engineering projects about fast transportation around USA. And now actually there's a current project in China. So it's a great idea. I like it, you like it, the media mostly like it too. There are some mostly sensational journalists who try to make fun of it, but I think that's peanuts. That will not be able to stop such a great idea to go through. But there is something that caught my eye that's actually really dangerous. And I'm reading this comment in an article from New Yorker. It says, additional bad news is that California's politicians are skeptical for the Hyperloop, as they have already committed to their own relatively slow, high-speed train. Now, projected to be finished in 2029 for over $70 billion of taxpayers' money. So I will not comment that. This is a family show. But I would like to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, not to let the politicians take you for another ride on your own dime. Take the Hyperloop instead and save money, time, and the planet. Thank you.
Wow. Slobodan, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for kindling in us and all of us. Please take 2 minutes and evaluate Slobodan's amazing ride that we're all going to go on and support Slobodan. Including, by the way, next weekend, the plug for the meetup group, the retreat next weekend. Please see Slobodan afterwards. We're going away. You guys are all invited. And we are now going to bring up Stephanie in a moment. But everybody, we're going to ask first of all, Arthur, did everybody qualify?
Tom qualified. Diane qualified. Slobodan was open.
I see. We are voting between Tom and Diane for the best speech. Everybody take a moment, and Dan will collect. We are now going to bring up Stephanie for an evaluation, and she will lead Bert, Jeff, and Will to go over how they all did. Stephanie.
Now we're up to the evaluation portion. So I'll introduce our evaluators. First up, we have Bert Chakowski to evaluate Tom Jones' speech.
How many of you were entertained by Tom's talk? His folktale. At what point did you figure it out? Had you heard something like this story before? When did you realize it? Jeff?
The second board.
The second board. Tom really pulled us into the story. How? The scripted detail, the heat, the size of the characters. Have you ever seen a 1,200-pound man? An 800-pound man? A 600-pound man. So he really brought us in. He used a lot of vocal variety, didn't he? Started out sort of slow, methodically. In the middle of the story, pace picked up. Got to a crescendo, really at the climax of the story, and then tailed off again. He used a lot of vocal variety, and these are really useful things for a storyteller to draw people in, paint a picture. How many felt like you could really visualize what was going on? Almost everybody, yeah. So it's like, there was a few spots there where, you know, the original tale had more to do with architecture, if you will. This one had more to do with the ginormity of the characters more than anything else. He created a bit of suspense, and he just did that by the pacing, and I really appreciated that. But the thing that I wanted to suggest Tom do, even though he's sitting there is some gestures that you can do to engage people. One is to lean forward. One thing Abraham Lincoln always did was put his elbows on the table. He didn't have a table, but he could have leaned forward to really quiet down, and he did quiet down to really attract people in the audience. And I think that's something when we're sitting, we kind of we think, well, we don't need a whole lot of gesturing, but there's maybe a little subtle things that we did, but he's more than made up for it, didn't he? With the vocal variety, the pacing, the rhythm, and this description of all the characters in the story. And that's why Tom Trainer is really an incredible storyteller. Thank you very much.
Evaluate Diane Denbaugh's speech.
Yo! Fellow Toastmasters, members, guests, especially Diane. Again, I have the privilege to evaluate Diane. The last time I evaluated Diane, I had a real hard time picking something to improve because, I mean, it's obvious, she's a natural. She commanded the stage, she was confident, she was relaxed, and she told a great story. It is one of those speeches that, as members, we really enjoy because we got to learn a lot about. She brought a lot of personal aspects into it. And again, Diane Goes Down Under, and I apologize for not mentioning the speech title when I originally introduced you. So the objectives for this speech were pretty simple: to tell a story at the beginning, tell a story at the end, that tie into the main point. How well did the opening story relate to the speech topic? Excellent, right? Everyone here, I heard laughs from everyone. It was very funny. Doesn't get much better, and I mean, it was really great. How well did the closing story reemphasize the speech's main point? This is where if the speech were to be improved, you could have left yourself a little bit more time. To me, there seemed to be a little bit of a disconnect between, and again, I don't know if you had more time, if you would have been able to explain a little bit more. It didn't come off as rushed necessarily. For being short on time, you did a very good job staying calm and cool and not being rushed. But from the packet, the leaving them with a smile, that was the point of it. It was that we were supposed to end, everyone was supposed to be smiling. I looked around, people were, but I wasn't sure if it re-emphasized that main point of not sweating the small stuff. So that would have been, I guess, the one thing you could have improved is emphasizing, rehashing that connection on how the story brings us back to the main point. How appropriate were both stories for the audience? Sex, we had some drugs, some alcohol. I think we're all mature enough to handle those topics. So no, I think it was very appropriate. It was honest humor, and it made us all laugh. So, you know, we're laughing, we're smiling, a good time. So it's perfect. It's perfect. Very human. How amusing were both the stories to me? They were very amusing. They were genuine, honest humor. I was laughing. How effectively did the closing story end the speech? Again, I didn't fully get the connection. Could have been a little bit better. But other than that, I mean, wonderful job. I mean, you had the opening and then the main topic, not to sweat the small stuff. We get all these examples for your life on how we're not going to sweat the sharks. You know, oh, we're going to bury with a cage of beer bottles. That's great. We're on an island by ourselves. I mean, it was really good stuff. It supported the main topic. And again, your presentation was just wonderful. So overall, awesome. Well done. And again, I really enjoyed the humorous aspects and the personal aspects as well. So we look forward to more. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now I'd like to ask Will Burns for his evaluation of Slobodans.
Yo!
Thank you, Stephanie. Fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, viewers at home, and Slobodon. A topic I think that was relevant to all of us here. Many of us like to travel. Those of us that don't do have objections that would be addressed by your proposal. So if they had to travel, they want to do it in a fast, as painless as possible process. Now, several things. This is a research topic, and I feel that it could have used a little more strength with the research, because you want to show figures, you want to show data. I got some things here. I have Consumer Reports. There was a Russian scientist that kind of worked on this technology in the early 1990s, and then there was research done at the Institute Technique. Is that correct?
WPI, Booster Project.
Okay. And that goes to, I recommend with this one actually, because you have a lot of data here to present, to have like a larger visual aid with some of these sites or the papers, because I heard you mention the Institute, but it went by so fast. But I like how you came out here, you greeted the audience, and you actually asked a question of Rhonda right away. Actually, you asked it of her, but you engaged all of us with that. That was very nice. You had several points here that you actually addressed. They came up in my mind early in the speech, and then you actually addressed them in the speech. I was wondering who Elon Musk was, but then you kind of went into that and talked about history a little bit. The other suggestion I have is you could hang up your visual aids and bring them out earlier, so we have something to kind of fix it on and get us to visualize what you're talking about early and then kind of bring it in. But I also like how at the end you had a really nice call to action to reject these politicians' boondoggles on our own dime.
Now we'll vote for the best evaluator. So, don't forget, did they qualify?
All four are qualified.
All right, so don't forget that it's for the
The names
Satish.
are Satish, Bert, Jeff, and Wade.
Okay, so now, continuing on with the evaluation portion, I'd like to call up the reports. So first off, Art with the timers report.
So, table topic speakers, Cindy was 1 minute 58 seconds, Darlene 2 minutes 32 seconds, Karen 2 minutes 13. Prepared speeches, Tom requesting 7 to 9 was 8 minutes 25. Diane requesting 6 to 8 was 8 minutes 30 seconds, and some hundreds that are probably my thumb being a little too slow. Slow down.
Don't sweat it.
Slow down requesting 5 to 7.
She'll be all right.
She'll be
8
right.
minutes and 12 seconds. Table topics evaluator Satish was 3 minutes 2 seconds. Speech evaluators Bert was 2 minutes 30. Jeff was 2 minutes 53. William was 2 minutes 17. That's the timer's report at 50 seconds.
Yo!
Okay, thank you, Art, for that. And now I'll call up Jean Summerton Craig with the Art County report.
Yo!
I just have to say, I love doing counting. It's so interesting. Cindy Traynor, 1 well. Maryland, 2 so's and 1 okay. I come up with a lot of my own words that I see as people are using them. So there's a lot of extra notes here. Darlene, 1 or 3 1 you know, 5 so's, 3 ands, 1 like, and 1 kind of. Karen,
Like so and but.
Karen, 1 those are together, 1 2 you knows, 2 so's, 3 ands, 2 tongue clicks. I do a little like sign like that, like it's a tongue to indicate what I'm doing here. Satish, 1 1 1 so, 1 but, 3 sort ofs. Is it or is it? Isn't it?
Ah!
Sort of. Scott, one one Is it? Tom. Now, Tom had a certain, could be saying he's doing a dialect of some sort, but if he weren't, and if I were judging Big Al and the Boer Boys, I'd be saying there was 2 ands and 6 nows and 6 kind ofs. Diane, 2 ahs, 1 you know, 8 so's, 3 ands, 1 now, 2 false starts. I mean like that. Slobodan, oh, this was a lot of work. Okay, 8 uhs, 11 ums, 1 you know, 7 so's, 4 buts, 4 ands, 1 tongue click, 2 wells, 2 nows, 3 false starts. Bert, 1 or 1 you know, 1 so, 1 but, 1 and, 1 false start, and 1 kind of. Jeff, 3 uhs, 6 ums, I mean, 5 I means. That was Jeff's unique piece. 2 you knows, 3 so's, 1 but, 4 again. Again.
Me still?
That was you. No, I'm still on you.
Got enough?
Where were we? Okay. 3 false starts and 2 rights. Think about this, because these are words, but they can be used as filler words. Right?
You're right.
Will, 3 uhs, 5 ums, 1 you know, 1 so, 1 and, I gotta smile more. 1 now, 4 false starts, and 1 kind of. Art, the little bit that you spoke, I still got an and a so out of that. That's it, that's my report.
Thank you for that very thorough report and for updating us that now there are new filler words we've got to keep an eye out for. Right.
Right.
And now I'll call on Vera for the grammarian report.
Yay!
So the word of today, it kindles my joy to see Diane back. Thank you for coming.
Darlene.
Darlene.
Thank you.
Haven't seen you for a while. And the creative uses that I really liked was Marilyn. She's mentioned schools that kindle creativity, so that was very sweet. And Tom mentioned kindled that fire in his storytelling. Slobodan kindles imagination, and kindled minds rekindled. So that was creative. And Darlene kindles, for my expression, kindles the joy. And some uses of the word that I questioned was Scott. I think he was making those up. I never heard them before. So thank you very much. That's my report.
Do we have anyone for a last minute joke?
There you go.
Just a quick joke. A little girl was going with her grandmother to the hospital to visit the grandfather. So when they get to the hallway where the room is, the little girl runs ahead. She runs in the room. She says, "Grandpa, Grandpa, make a noise like a frog," as soon as Grandma walks in the door. He says, "What?" She says, "Make a noise like a frog as soon as Grandma walks in the door. I heard her say that as soon as you croak, we're going to Disneyland."
Okay, so now it's time for me to do the general evaluation. So it's my job as general evaluator to evaluate the evaluators. So first off, Satish did a good job as being a table topics evaluator. The thing that I liked that Satish did was he made sure that he gave everyone positive feedback as well as some suggestions for improvement and then some more positive feedback at the end. One thing I think you could have pointed out better with Darlene segueing into her story about her life at the moment, which was fun, I think we all enjoyed it because we've all missed Darlene, was that that's technically, I think, okay in these sort of meetings, but you could mention that, of course, in a competition that wouldn't be ideal, and so ideally we should practice sticking to the topic, which I think is what you were trying to say. Sometimes it is hard to come up with constructive criticism. I think if you can, try and find something other than just you didn't mention this part of the audience or something like that, because the more techniques you can focus on, the more that people will learn who are we're all trying to improve our skills. But I know it's hard because you had some great speakers like Cindy, who's a very experienced speaker. It's hard to find suggestions. Okay, now Bert, in terms of your critique of Tom's speech, once again it's not easy because Tom's a very experienced speaker. I did like the way you got the audience involved, and I liked the way you related all of Tom's techniques so we could see what skills Tom had been using. I thought that was great. For example, you said how he picked up the pace as the story went on, and you gave him some suggestions. So I thought you did a good job. I suppose maybe if you could have been a little bit more concrete in the suggestions, it might have helped Tom if you could have said, you know, at this point you could have gestured like this. But I thought your suggestions were great, so that's good. And then moving on to Jeff, evaluating Diane. I thought your comments were funny in themselves, which was great. I mean, if you're talking about Australia, it's quite natural to talk about sex stories. Unfortunately. But I think you could have been a little bit more lenient on Diane, or mentioned the fact that she only decided to do this speech today and she was filling a gap in the agenda, so that could be why it wasn't quite as polished as it normally is from Diane. I think besides that your suggestions were good, and I think you picked up on some of the points that where Diane could have improved her speech. And Will, your critique of Slobodan, or your suggestions for Slobodan? I'm not sure that research always has to be facts and data. I think a lot of the things that Slobodan brought out was in fact research, because he looked into a lot of things and made us aware of things we weren't used to. But I agree that the visual aids definitely would have helped, because some of us couldn't see his photos because he was in the way of the photos, so obviously if they'd been projected it would have been much better. So that was a really good suggestion of yours. But on the whole, I think the evaluators did a good job, and I think speakers could have improved their speeches as a result. So thank you.
Excellent evaluation. We are tightening on our time, so we're going to move quickly into the awards.
Yeah!
There we go. That's table topics. Karen! Come on in! These. I don't know. It was a symbol of something. It's symbolic of some other reality. Best speaker. Who will it be? Tom, it is! Come on now! You deserve it, sir. Congratulations. And the best evaluator of tonight, the best evaluator of tonight, the best evaluator! Bert, come on down! come on down. So, hey, thank you for making it aware, and thank you for leading the meetup group this weekend. Everybody should join. Tell them, see Slobodan afterwards. Great retreat. Thank you, Rhonda.
Ladies and gentlemen, I met a viewer from home this weekend at the farmer's market. She came up to me and said, "I see you on TV." She said, "I'd like to come, but I don't want to be on film." And I said, "You don't have to be. We can stop the camera." And Joyce, you will remain anonymous, but she knows that she can come now and become a member without being seen on TV.
Hi, Joyce.
I could put a bag over her head.
Who said that? Bert. All right, no. What an exciting night. Thank you everyone for bringing your speeches, for bringing the audience. I'd like to ask our guests if they would comment on something they appreciated about the evening. And Jeanette, may I start with you? Did I get your name correct? Jeanette?
I like the fun, I like laughing, and that was interesting. I like it.
Wonderful.
And now in French.
Not in French.
Can we have an award for you? This is where leaders are made. Sally, would you like to say something about why you came and something that you appreciate?
Sure. Well, Art has invited me a couple of times, and I didn't really pay attention. Oh, there's an ah. And so I realized that there are two major issues and situations and events in my life that I need this for in order to go out there and speak in public to Congress, the Pentagon, and top military brass. And I need to solve these issues as soon as possible, and I need your help. So it's your job, I'm commissioning you, it's your job to help me be out there and speak eloquently, calmly without crying, and make a difference in our country for our military.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sally. Surya, would you like to comment on something you appreciate about the meeting?
Sure. Well, something particular, or there are quite a lot of things that I appreciated about it.
Lie!
Well, I appreciated the creativity. You know, it was fun to watch, and but also the critiques. You know, I felt it was very educational for somebody that hasn't been here a lot, or hasn't twice I think now. You know, to even in a little session like this to walk away with something that something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Surya. Yes, Surya is going to join tonight, and we welcome every member that comes. Now we will adjourn our meeting tonight until next week at 7:30. Please come early. There are things that are constructive to do at 7:30. And
come on down, Judy. Help us pick up.
Please help us pick up the room. Thank you, Tom. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.